What's good, y'all? Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. We're back with another AFL video. We have the drop punts, aka drop kicks, whatever. Now listen, yesterday I do know it is an insult. Shout out to who did recommend that, but I have heard the drop kick is an insult in Aussie land. So listen, we are talking about just an AFL game. I know it's like two different as meanings for it. I really don't know the meaning of why it is an insult. I mean, if you guys want to tell me why, go ahead. But we're talking about the AFL. We're talking about the AFL game. Not interpersonal, but just talking about the AFL game in general. But first and first, we guys are doing good, amazing, stupendous, doing very well on this Thursday. Well, Friday where you guys are, but the Thursday where it is here. So anyway, man, slowly approaching the season. Again, another day by day. I think with like a solid month, solid month away from the season starting. Can't wait for it. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be electric. It's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be absolutely fun. But anyway, let's go ahead and get straight to the video. Don't forget to like the video and sub us if you are new to the channel. I'm excited, man. Let's just check it out. Drop punts.
The drop punt is the field trip choice for basically every Australian footballer at every level of the game. While it might not have the distance of the torpedo punt, or the ability to curve in the air like a snap or banana, its accuracy and reliability has seen it become the most common way to distribute the ball by foot. But did you know that it took more than 115 years of competitive football for the drop punt to become a respected method of disposal? Before it gained popularity in the 1970s and 80s, the drop punt was ridiculed by players, fans and journalists, with one scribe calling it the silliest looking kick in football history.
Bro, what? I don't care if it's silly, goofy, ugly. If it goes in, it goes in. If it's a goal, it's a goal. You know what I mean? Like, when people hate on the kick, like, y'all should be happy to kick when, it was a goal. That's a funny one because I didn't know that. I was just thinking of it when
to best demonstrate the kicking techniques most preferred in the early 20th century, we can take a look at the earliest surviving footage of Australian football.
Ooh.
The 1909 VFL Grand Final between South Melbourne and Carlton.
Carlton.
The historic vision shows a mixture of drop kicks, flat punts, torpedoes, place kicks, and the good old mongrel punt.
Mongrel?
A lot of the time, players were simply kicking for distance. The skill level of the game had yet to evolve to the point where players were hitting up teammates on leads with a nicely weighted pass. It was mostly just about throwing the ball in your boot before you were tackled. And let's not even get started on what constituted a handball back then.
What the heck?
This promotional video from 1929 featured a litany of star players from the VFL undergoing training sessions at their various clubs' home grounds. Note the grip with which the players held the football as if they were about to kick it. The ball would be dropped onto the boot so that the foot made contact with a large surface area, the underside of the leather pill. This method is why many punts of the time would spin much less in the air, instead just wobbling and floating throughout its trajectory in a similar position throughout. Watch Melbourne flanker Les Jones boot a flat punt through the big sticks in the 1939 VFL Grand Final. Another weapon of choice was the drop kick, employed here to great effect by prolific Carlton forward Ken Baxter a year earlier in the 1938 Grand Final. The dropkick was often used by players keen to get some extra distance on the footy, but it came with a risk of flying off the side of the boot.
Yeah.
Souths.
Yeah, I think that happened to me because when I played, dude, I had like a drop kick, drop punt, whatever. Dude, my foot was hurting. My foot was stinging for a couple seconds, bro. I probably did hit right. I was getting ready to get tackled. I was like, how to get rid of it.
Ron Hillis is shown here in a 1937 promotional video executing a booming dropkick. His teammate, Jack Graham, shows us how a place kick is taken, most often used for a set shot, given the time it took to set up. An early precursor to what became known as the drop punt is the stab kick. What we recognise today as a low, darting bullet pass began its life in the early 1900s and was brought to life by three Collingwood champions, Dick Condon, Ted Rowell and Charlie Panham, who picked up the skill on a 1902 exhibition trip to Tasmania. An article written in the Argus in 1910 describes the pass as a dropkick where the ground, ball and foot all meet at the same time. This kept the trajectory nice and low, making it difficult for opposing defenders to intercept.
Yeah.
Here, Magpie Billy Libis shows us a sound technique.
That's nice kick.
It was in fact another Collingwood legend, goal-kicking mastermind Dick Lee, who was credited in some circles as being the creator of the drop punt.
God damn, my boy's up in the air.
It is, of course, almost impossible to pinpoint exactly who was the very first person to use this particular style, given the apocryphal nature of some wartime stories. But Lee recounted in a 1940 Sporting Globe retrospective that, from close in, I dropped the ball end on and kicked a punt from the end of the ball. A year later, legendary journalist Hector Lacey would explain that Lee developed both the place kick and a type of stab punt in which he dropped the ball point first and stabbed at it like a shot arrow with hairline accuracy. This kick eventually became known as a drop punt. Other early exponents of the drop punt have all been believed, at some time, to be the creator of the drop punt. Carlton's Horry Clover, a prolific scorer, was said to have picked up the technique from local Carisbrook teammate Hugh Hinks and subsequently displayed the punt in the VFL throughout the 1920s. Len Metherell, a forward originally from Subiaco in the WAFL, brought the drop punt with him to Geelong in 1930, and a Sporting Globe piece in 1933 recognised him as performing a kick that is all his own, and was surprised at its accuracy.
So it seemed like if some people who did bring it over from, I guess, from like different teams or organizations, stuff like that, because it seemed to me people were doing it. So it just seemed like it seemed like they were doing it though. That's the thing. It seemed like
Richmond
people were
champion
actually
Jack Dyer
doing it.
was also widely credited as popularising the drop punt throughout his star-studded career, but even he remarked that he picked it up from the Collier brothers at Collingwood. Dyer's drop punt was described as a crazy kick and peculiar, but always alongside an observation as to how accurate it was. Following Dyer's retirement, a number of his Tiger teammates would use the kick in years to come, and the term drop punt began to properly enter the footballing lexicon.
So Collingwood game.
This 1950 article from a regional New South Wales newspaper explains how the accuracy of a new kick, termed the drop punt and evolved by Dyer, amazed onlookers. Its popularity started to grow interstate, being used by a number of players in the South Australian League. Back in Victoria, Cats spearhead George Ganninan booted 11 goals in the 1951 semi-final win over Collingwood, all coming via the use of the drop punt, still referred to in some circles as a stab kick punt, for it was yet to be as prominent as we know it now. The drop punt continued to make its way around the country as a valuable skill, particularly in unpleasant conditions, as by using the drop punt instead of the drop kick, the unpredictability of a boggy surface playing havoc with the ball drop was removed. Tasmanian Ray Stokes was highlighted in a 1953 Adelaide Advertiser article as a drop punt specialist, and how he was able to move the ball with confidence. Stokes would have inherited the talent from playing under Dyer a half-decade prior during his time at Richmond, where the pair were teammates. That's not to say that the kick had caught on, however, more just that its presence was at least acknowledged by some. The drop punt itself was still a joke to many. Fitzroy's Tony Ongarello, coincidentally the last VFL AFL player.
Okay, not even that, but like just the clip itself, like bro was showing like dude seemed like he was playing basketball with it. He was jimming the ball, looking like Allen Iverson with the handle. I'm like, hey, but it's funny how it just seemed like you said, people just weren't really accepting it, even though it seemed to be like it was working. I guess it was like a funny matter, stuff like that. You know, it seemed like some people were trying to bring it on, but just wasn't wholly accepted. That's weird. That's interesting. That's very, very interesting.
Player to attempt a place kick in a match when he scored with one during the 1955 season, provided some fodder for the crowd just 3 years later when he sprayed a drop punt attempt at goal during a match against Carlton. The innovative kicking technique was still yet to be respected by the footballing
they
public.
got binoculars on.
By the early 1960s, the drop punt was largely still remembered as a quirk of Jack Dyer's, and while Captain Blood could be seen teaching the method to Richmond youngsters at training, it was rarely utilised on the field. But later in the decade, two future Hall of Famers would start to make their mark on the league, and each were able to captivate the crowd with their accurate drop punts. Carlton's Alex Jesselenko only began playing the sport at age 14, so for him, kicking a drop punt was the most logical method of disposal. He honed the skill as an 18-year-old for Eastlake in the Canberra League, and had it on full display when he arrived at Princes Park a few years later. The other was debonair mop top Peter McKenna, whose accuracy in front of goal could be credited to his drop punt kicking style. Fans and players were starting to take notice.
Yeah, about
Melbourne
time.
coach Norm Smith had previously advised his players against using the drop kick in the defensive half, and when his protege Ron Barassi took the coaching reins at North Melbourne in the mid-1970s, he outlawed the drop kick as a team principle. Only champion rover Barry Cable was given leeway to bend the rules.
Wait, what? Why are you bending something out? Why? Why would you? Why? Why?
So as the speed of the game increased, the drop punt's popularity grew. A 1976 newspaper insert featured Richmond superstar Royce Hart hosting a How to Play Football series, outlining the basic fundamentals of Aussie rules. Hart says that the drop punt is the kick I use almost exclusively. It is a drop kick, minus the element of risk, is easy to execute, and relatively easy to mark. While Hart still included the drop kick in his list of skills, he said he no longer believed in using the kick because of the high risk of error. As the drop kick started becoming extinct, so too did the flat punt. Some of the last times the flat punt was deliberately executed on the big stage was on Grand Final Day. In 1975, Doug Wade, in his last ever VFL match, helped the Kangaroos to a maiden premiership with 4 goals, 3 of those from distinguishable flat punts. Peter Hudson kicked more than 1,700 senior goals throughout Victoria and Tasmania using his patented flat punt set shot routine, hunched over the ball with a calculated long run-up. And in the famous drawn grand final of 1977, Twiggy Dunn's last gasp flat punt forced a replay between Collingwood and North Melbourne. One only needs to watch a full game of football from 1980 onwards to see that the drop punt was now the kick of choice for essentially every player in the country. Bernie Quinlan, the man they called Super Boot, and who didn't mind a drop kick early in his career, was quoted in a 1983 Age article that you'd get murdered if you tried to kick a drop kick today. While noting that the drop kick did travel a good 10 metres further than any drop punt, it was a combination of its risk factor, the pace of the game, and even the newer soft-toe, low-cut football boots that spelled its demise. And so the drop punt has reigned supreme ever since, becoming such an accepted part of the game that players virtually abandon the torpedo, drop kick, flat punt, and any other variation of a straight pass for fear of retribution. But football is always evolving.
Right.
In the last decade, shots on goal that would once only be attempted with a drop punt have now been converted with much greater accuracy using the around-the-corner snap kick. And there are now players who prefer to play on and snap even when directly in front of goal. But is there room left to create a brand new kick? Leave that to the innovators. Only time will tell.
That's interesting because you would just think that, it's it seemed like it was something that was evolving during just during like year by year it was evolving. No, it's like it wasn't really accepted because there's like error and stuff like that. But some people just, some players just stay committed to it, and look how it is now. It's pretty common. I know, like we were doing torpedoes and stuff back then. But I mean, if it works, it works. That's how I am. If it works, it works. But that's really interesting about that. You guys let me know you guys thoughts about that. Don't forget to like the video and stuff as well. As always, stay safe, stay amazing. Love you guys. Talk to you guys later, man. Peace.